The Lord of the Rings is many people's favorite fantasy movie series. I am no exception. I have watched those movies multiple times, both the theatrical and extended versions, and can quote many lines from all three movies. I love the beautiful costumes designed by the great Nyla Dixon and Richard Taylor. There are many characters in these movies to love, and many to identify with. However, I always identified most with Éowyn. Possibly because she's one of the only female characters with any character development. She starts in a very dark place, and really comes into her own by the end of the last film. We will be talking about the extended editions of these movies, since there's just so much more Éowyn in them. Let us talk about Éowyn, Lady of Rohan. We first meet Éowyn running up the steps of Meduseld after the massacre of her people at the hands of orcs. She is wearing an opulent, multi-layered velvet and brocade green gown, color of the flags of Rohan, symbolizing her station as niece of the king and Lady of Rohan. She is hurrying to see her cousin Theodred, heir to the throne, who, incredibly, has been found alive. However, his deep wounds don't lend much hope for his survival, and no amount of heavy dark green velvet or gold-embroidered trim will help Éowyn or her brother convince their dear elderly uncle, the King of Rohan, to come see his son in his final moments and send help to the rest of the troops. The king is not himself, under the insidious influence of Grima Wormtongue. Her only ally in Edoras, her brother Éomer, is banished, and her cousin dies, leaving her alone. Her situation at court has become more and more alarming, making her vulnerable to Grima's influence. Éowyn is alone and hopeless. She can do nothing. There is no hope for Rohan, no hope for Theoden King, no hope for Theodred, and most of all, no hope for Éowyn. She bursts from the palace into the light and air, in a white wool dress adorned with silver and gold braid and cinched with a belt, symbolizing the white horse of Rohan, and reminding us that in the books she is called the White Lady of Rohan. The simplicity of this dress can be misleading. The medieval bliant-like cut with flared sleeves shows us a version of Éowyn who is maiden-like, stuck in her situation with no power over her future. But the subtle gold and silver floral embroidery, braid gathering her sleeves, and heavy gilt belt signify her inner strength about to show through. From within her turmoil atop Meduseld, Éowyn sees hope for the future approaching in the form of a kingly man, accompanied by a wizard, an elf, and a dwarf. As the group seems to harm her uncle, she rushes to help him, sleeves aflutter. But the man, Aragorn, stops her, and she decides to trust him. Her trust is well placed, for she watches ecstatically as her uncle is cured. Hope has returned to the kingdom and to Éowyn's life. But this victory has not come in time. Éowyn presides over the burial of her cousin, wearing a black velvet mourning dress and a dark blue mantle, with a gold circlet sporting symbol Mune, the flowers that cover the graves of Rohan. Éowyn advocates, together with Aragorn, for mitigating any further harm by facing the onslaught of Sauron's armies. And so, from the ashes of mourning dress, hope springs anew with a brown-buttoned traveling coat trimmed with fur for warmth, as the city prepares to evacuate to Helm's Deep. As Éowyn helps with preparations, she observes Aragorn soothing her cousin's spooked horse with the strange yet calming words of another world. He instructs the horse lords to set the horse free. While she packs, Aragorn comes upon Éowyn earnestly practicing swordcraft in her traveling clothes, a blue gathered chemise and laced brown tunic. Her sleeves are laced up, showing her readiness to literally roll up her sleeves and break out of her socially mandated shell. Aragorn's engagement with her swordplay encourages her to share her thoughts and values. Éowyn desires the valor that all the heroes of her culture have. She sees nothing valorous in women's roles, and so craves the life of the warrior she worships. She fears a cage, to be stuck in a world where only men's deeds are recorded and deemed important, and eventually losing the desire to break out at all. Aragorn tries to belie this fear by saying that he doesn't believe that will happen to her, making her fall for him even more. On the way to Helm's Deep, Éowyn, in her brown traveling coat, laughs and is carefree with Aragorn in a way she hasn't been recently. Seeing that Aragorn's mind is elsewhere, Éowyn asks him about his necklace. He answers that the one who gave it to him is leaving Middle-earth, implying that she isn't in his life anymore. Éowyn's wide sleeves indicate that, although she is traveling, she is of high status and not expected to do menial tasks like cooking. This is demonstrated when Aragorn takes a bite of her soup, and we can tell from his face that it is quite gross. While dispensing of his soup, she expresses curiosity about him and his past. She finds out that Aragorn is descended from a legendary race of men. When the wargs attack, Theoden relegates her to leading the people to Helm's Deep. Even though she wants to stay and fight, Theoden besieges her to do it for him, and so she reluctantly takes on the mantle of leadership and leads the people away. When they arrive safe and sound at Helm's Deep, she has shed her traveling coat. Is it possible that her leadership skills have developed such that she gave it to someone who needed it more? At Helm's Deep, she recognizes how much there is to do and starts organizing their meager provisions. When the warriors return, Gimli tells her that Aragorn, her hope and hero, has fallen. When a bedraggled Aragorn does finally arrive at Helm's Deep, Éowyn is ecstatic. But before she can greet him, his necklace is restored to him. Éowyn is reminded of the other woman, for whom he is still pining. When organizing for battle, Éowyn informs Aragorn that she is being sent into the caves with the women and children. She says it like it's a punishment, ignoring the fact that she'll not only be with the women and children, but leading them. Aragorn wisely defers to the king's decision, assuring her that there is honor in what she has been tasked to do. She is incredulous and asks what renown there is in minding children and finding bedding. He speaks of valor, which is what she wanted, without renown. Ignoring this wisdom in favor of her own desires, she tries another method of persuasion. She expresses loyalty to him, comparing herself to his friends, who stay with him because they love him. He is visibly embarrassed, and she understands she has gone too far. Ashamed of her gaffe, she leaves to do her duty. To ready herself for the task at hand, she laces her sleeves and ties up her hair. Despite her reluctance, she remains dutiful in her support of the women and children. When the battle is over, Éowyn sets eyes on Aragorn and tenderly hugs the battered man, too overcome with victory and relief to worry about propriety. Upon returning to Edoras, we first see Éowyn in the same position as at the beginning of her story. Despite the recent tumult, she has not undergone any real change or achieved any of her goals. King Theoden holds a great feast to celebrate their victory and commemorate fallen comrades. Éowyn, as the king's niece, has a central role in the proceedings. Clad in a dreamy light blue dress woven with gold, she presents the king with his goblet. Later, she brings Aragorn a cup too, and wishes him well. He drinks deeply while holding her gaze, nods his head in thanks, and walks away. Theoden congratulates her, assuming by her longing stares that she is in love, and giving his enthusiastic blessing. The light hue of her dress shows us that she casts a hopeful light on her future. The mantle she later sleeps under is a similar color, lined with gold and trimmed with fur for warmth and status. While adjusting her covers, Aragorn wakes her. She grips his hand and tearfully recounts a dream wherein darkness overtakes everything. He soothes her and tucks her back to sleep. When Gondor lights their beacons calling for aid, Éowyn runs into the hall in time to hear her uncle proclaim that he will answer the call, living up to the strength and grandeur of Rohan. She is dressed in a gown of deep brown and gold, matching the richly decorated hall, as well as the momentous circumstance. Her brother nods his goodbyes before going to muster the Rohirrim. Her feelings of pride and honor must be clouded by worry as she sees her family once again prepare for battle. As she readies to accompany them, supposedly only to the encampment, she is once again in glorious richness, but this time suitable for travel. She sports a green quilted bodice and brown velvet cowl neck bordered in floral gold embroidery. The green color and simple moon of flowers show her devotion to Rohan and its people. When Aragorn catches a glimpse of her sword, it is made clear that that devotion and a desire for valor compels her farther than the encampment and into battle. At the encampment, Éowyn wears a brown vest with gold detail, over a chemise with trailing sleeves. This ensemble is more informal, as befits a military camp. But the flowy outfit shows that Éowyn herself would not be expected to do any manual labor or fighting. After all, she is not only a woman, but a princess of the realm. She encourages the hobbit Merry, newly appointed esquire of Rohan, to ready his armor and sword for war, and Éomer chides her for it. She defends her friend by saying he has as much cause to go to war as Éomer, to fight for those he loves. Her brother responds harshly, saying that neither Éowyn nor Merry know anything about war. War is ugly. War is scary. War is a place for men. Seeing Aragorn abandoning the camp, Éowyn rushes to try to dissuade him. He asks her why she has come. She asks, "Do you not know?" Her eyes hopeful and pleading. Devastatingly, Aragorn rejects her, saying that she doesn't actually love him, but some image of him she's imagined. He wishes her joy and walks away, leaving Éowyn shattered. Theoden finds her staring blankly at the sunrise, and lets her know that she will rule Rohan should he be killed in battle. She asks unhappily what other duties he would ask of her. Theoden says he only wants her to be happy. She gives him a tiny smile, and he seems satisfied. These 3 interactions, in which the important men in her life tried to put her off going to war, have not convinced her to stay away from battle. When the camp empties of warriors on their way to fight Sauron and his forces, Éowyn takes her future into her own hands and secretly rides with them, her identity hidden behind a helmet and visor. She takes Merry with her, as she believes he also deserves a chance to fight. For her ride into battle, Éowyn is dressed like all her fellow riders, with nothing to show her status. She clearly wants to blend in with everyone else. Like the other riders, she is clad in mail and draped with a cape of Rohan green, her sword strapped to her hip. And even though Rohan men wear their hair long, Éowyn's is much longer, so she has tucked her hair into her shirt to disguise even this difference as best she can. On the way to Gondor, faced with imminent battle, Éowyn and Merry encourage each other. Merry reminds her of their reasons for fighting and for living to tell the tale, to help their friends and people who depend upon them. They don their helmets and prepare for battle. Faced with the reality of war on the edge of Pelennor Fields, Éowyn and Merry shake with fear. But Éowyn remembers what Merry told her, and reminds him to have courage for our friends, promising she'll look after him during the battle. Encouraged by the army's rallying cry, the 2 overcome their fear, raising their swords and voices with the rest. The riders of Rohan charge into the fray! Éowyn and Merry function well as a team during the battle, taking down orcs and oiliphants. But when they fall off their horse and get separated, Éowyn is all alone on the battlefield, holding off orcs all around her. Seeing the king, her beloved uncle, horrifically struck down by a Nazgul, she bravely stands between them, despite the Nazgul's warning that this is a bad idea. She single-mindedly unseats the Ringwraith. Realizing she is in over her head against this formidable opponent, she is struck to the ground. Declaring that no man can kill it, the Nazgul raises its mace for a final blow. Just at that moment, by happy chance, if chance you call it, Merry shows up and stabs the Nazgul, bringing it to its knees and releasing Éowyn. The Witch King of Angmar has tangled with the wrong person. For removing her helmet, uncovering her real self on the battlefield, she states for all to hear who she is.
I am no man.
And stabs the Witch King of Angmar, killing him. Despite this victory, Éowyn's uncle still lays dying. She promises she'll save him, but crying out her name one last time, he dies anyway, driving home for Éowyn the reality of loss in war. Éomer, her brother, and now only remaining family, brings her to the Houses of Healing. Her outer armor is stripped away, signifying her process of leaving behind aspirations of glory in arms. And yet she is, for the moment, being treated as a warrior by those around her, as indicated by her mail, which has been left on. Her terrible injuries are healed at the hands of Aragorn, a man she seems to no longer desire, as he takes on his responsibilities as King of Gondor. While recovering from her physical and emotional wounds, Éowyn wears a billowing gown of white silk, echoing the gown she wore at the beginning of her story. Though now, far from being a naive maiden, she is coming into her own as the White Lady of Rohan. At the Houses of Healing, she meets Captain Faramir of Gondor, a man of quality, who is recovering from dark wounds as well. Éowyn, wrapped in a dark shawl, stares blankly at the road that took the forces to battle. She sees no hope for the future. Faramir, who has had more time to recover from his injuries, reassures her. He sees hope beyond the current despair. He takes her hand, reassuring her. And she, reassured, smiles and leans her head on his shoulder. And they stand embracing for a while, staring out at the road that holds the bright future. The forces of good having prevailed, the long-lost king is crowned. To this momentous occasion of hope for the future, Éowyn wears a yellow gown, lusciously embroidered with gold. She dons her circlet of symbol Muna flowers, confirming her position as Lady of Rohan. She smilingly stands beside Faramir, showing that she has let go of her previous plans and looks forward to a happy future with him in the new world they have all thought about. The Lord of the Rings, the franchise that launched a generation of cosplayers. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Alleycat Scratch and CostumersGuide.com for indulging my high school interest of staring at pictures of pretty dresses from The Lord of the Rings for hours on end, and providing information on how to reproduce said dresses. Not that I ever did, though I came close a few times, and may yet do it. Thank you. You showed me I'm not the only person in the world interested in this stuff. I would not have been the same without you.